Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to today's webinar. It is 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Most of you in the audience know me already. My name is Chelsea Smith. I am your one and only learning and development specialist here at Action Benefits. And today we're going to talk about goal setting and how to really take the things that you want to see for yourself in your agency. And I don't want to say manifest them, because to me, that's not as concrete as what we're doing today, but kind of set yourself up like a roadmap on how to achieve those goals effectively. I've said this in a couple of webinars before. In a past life, I was a high school English teacher, and I not only used these tactics in my classroom for my students to get them to achieve to their best potential, but I used it for myself as well and for my classrooms. This session is a little different than ones you might be used to. I'm not going to be giving you tons of laws and regulations and really giving you a bunch of how to stay compliant, but I'm helping you shape your agency to take it to the next level that you'd like to get to. So thank you all for joining me today. I hope you had a great new year and a great holiday time, and get started. So before I talk about some of the high level things that we're going to discuss today, I want to check your temperature on your goal setting process you might currently have. Because I can't imagine for your agency, you've never set a goal for yourself or in your personal life at all. I can't imagine that's never happened. So if you could be so kind as to let me know in the chat some of the current ways that you might set a goal for yourself. And keep in mind too, by the way, in the chat, it is automatically set to hosts and panelists. So anything you type will be said just to me, or you can set it so that everyone can see your goals or everyone can see your question. So go ahead and toggle that if you want everyone to see, or if you just want me to see. And we'll talk about some of the things that I see momentarily. I know for me personally, especially with goals that are going to take me a very long time, I tend to like what's called backwards design, which is what we're going to talk about in a few moments. And I bet many of you have used backwards design in your life. You just didn't call it that, didn't recognize that's what you were doing. For example, if you ever renovated a room in your home or did any sort of renovations to your home, I guarantee you used backwards design because you had a picture in your head of what you wanted your new kitchen to look like, or you knew how you were going to plant your garden before you went out there and started digging, right? And if you haven't done that, you learned very quickly that was probably a better way to go, was to have the end of what you were starting with in mind and then heading through those other points. So I think that I bet you if you were to write something down, it would be something similar to that. You just never knew the word backwards design before. So as I said, when I set out my goals, I kind of use backwards design. You kind of start with what you want to achieve and then get more complex as you go on, get more into the details of how you're going to achieve that thing. The first step, of course, is to kind of think of what you would like to achieve. And usually when you think that, it's a very abstract thought you have, right? You're usually not like thinking over the very detailed objects. For instance, when I redid my basement, I didn't think about the paint colors and the floor color and where I just walked downstairs, saw the water on the floor. I'm like, well, guess we're redoing the basement. So, and I need like at that point, I just wanted the basement to be functional, right? Same thing with your agency. When you started your agency, you looked at it, you just said, I want my agency to function. I want it to be successful. That, of course, is a great goal. I'm not saying that that's a bad goal by any stretch of the imagination, but if you just had that as your goal and said, I just want to be successful, it's going to be very difficult for you to pinpoint what it is you need to do to be successful other than just wish for success, which again is awesome, but how are you going to get there? What are you going to do? This I had to do a lot with my sixth graders. They loved to just say, well, I'm just going to try my best and do a great job. And like, love that for you. Absolutely. But what does that mean? And then And I myself even do that. What does that mean? What does it mean to just try my best, right? Having those goals are great, but they're not going to be very obtainable unless you have an actionable item that you can pair with the goals to make sure they're getting done. We can talk all day about how we want to have a great agency, but until you single in on that things you're going to do, it's not actually going to come to fruition. And it might by happenstance, and that's awesome, but it's going to be very difficult for you to replicate those things or improve upon those things if you didn't track what you were doing, right? So I like to separate these actions, no pun intended, by the way, I'm going to say that a bunch of times, no pun intended. I'm going to separate these actions into kind of 3 different categories, which we'll tweak a little bit as we go through some of the examples of goals that we're going to talk about. But for the first example, we're going to separate it into the experience that you want your client to have, the things that you want to do differently within your agency or within yourself, and then zero in on the tools that you need to ensure that you can do those things. All of those 3 things together, as long as you plan accordingly and actually stick to the goal, stick to the things, you should be able to not only achieve the goal, but track how you got to that goal and what things you can add, subtract, remove, whatever, to get even higher in that goal later on. So this is the formula I used and have used for many, many years when I set goals. So when you set a goal for yourself, you should break that goal down into 3 separate parts. And I have been saying for the last few minutes to start with the end in mind, but for this portion, this is your end. This sentence on your screen here is like your end, but when you write the sentence, you're going to want to start in the middle. Okay, stay with me. Once you have that middle idea narrowed down, the thing that you want to accomplish, then you can kind of put parameters around that thing you want to accomplish. You're going to want to attach a measurable, usually numerical, not always, but usually numerical number data point to that sentence at the beginning of it. And then you're going to want to set a time frame in which that you can achieve that goal, right? Because if you give yourself too long of a time or never give yourself an ending point, again, you're going to struggle to measure how successful those implementations were. And then in the beginning of that sentence, it's going to be difficult to determine if you made your goal or not, if you have nothing to measure, right? If your goal is just, I want my agency to do better, of course, I want that for you. I want that for every single one of you in this webinar and every single one of you working with Action. I want your agency to do great. I don't know what great means to you until you tell me. Maybe great means to you, I want 5 bajillion new clients. And I'd be like, let's simmer down a little bit. Maybe you want to streamline some of your agency practices. And that's what's going to make your agency a great agency in your eyes. Until you narrow that down, it's going to be difficult to, again, know what you're going to accomplish and measure those accomplishments within a time period. Okay, so why are we doing this? Again, this ensures that your goal is going to be attainable and measurable. So some of these goal examples, it's a little easier if we talk about this in the realm of some examples. So I wrote 2 examples for you today. 85% of clients not experiencing a QLE will stay in their plan at open enrollment. So you'll notice that center portion, clients not experiencing a QLE will stay in their plan is kind of that middle part, that blue part from the slide previous. 85% of 85% is that numerical data point, that measurable point. And then that timeline, that red at the end of the sentence at open enrollment is when you want to achieve this goal. I wrote these all the time and had my students write them at the beginning of the year too. The second one here, we're going to talk about both of these in more detail momentarily. The second one is an example of kind of the switch up a little bit just so that the sentence makes sense. But for this one, it will be, I am 100% ready to sell Medicare plans to my clients by AEP. I purposefully chose these 2 examples because one of them is client focused. You'd have to bring your client's experience into the goal in order to achieve it. There's no way that you can achieve this goal without interacting with your clients in some capacity, and probably changing the way that you interact with them to achieve that goal. And then I purposely picked this other one on the right here, the 100% ready to sell one, because this is more of an internal, intrinsic thing that you're going to work on outside of interacting with your clients. So it's kind of going to be a balancing act with this one to still keep your plate spinning with your clients, still set up those meetings, still have those follow-up calls, still have those experiences with your clients, while still keeping your eyes on the prize of what you want to do to expand your business. And especially because, as we notice on that goal there, this is a by AEP goal. So this is a kind of a longer stretch of time that this person's giving themselves to obtain that goal, which is awesome, and which is what you should do, right? That's adding Medicare to your book of business is a huge decision. And there's a lot of moving parts to get to that end, right? But doing all those things with intention and sticking to it, going through, will give you these success points to have a great AEP your first time around if you do all those things. If you just decide in September you want to sell Medicare, that might be a little difficult for you. I don't suggest it, but if you start beginning of the year, plan that out, might be a better choice for you. So those are the two goals that I wrote out here that we are going to talk a little bit more about in depth. Once you have that goal set in stone for yourself, once you know for sure it is encompassing everything you want, it is specific enough that you can measure it, and you have an end timeline in mind, get this goal in front of your associates if you have associates in your agency. If you've ever played a video game before, or if you've ever played games with your children before, you know that it is very, very, very hard to win a game or get a goal that you don't know exists. So you have any employees, associates, or any other stakeholders involved in your agency, let them know about this goal, or better yet, involve them in the process of writing the goal. The more the person feels involved in this goal setting process, the more likely it is that they're going to participate, they're going to strive to success. The only time I would think not to communicate this goal to someone is your clients. If you have a goal of like, oh, like this, the first one we talked about, 85% of clients not experiencing a QLE will stay in their plan of open enrollment. That's not really something you want to tell your clients, because they're going to see that as like, altering your process to fit yourself. I would not put that out there for them. And then this 100% ready to sell one, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment as to how you would get that goal out to your clients. That's not something you would want to obviously keep under wraps by the time you get to October, but it's also something that is internal to you. So making sure you keep both of those things in mind as to who to tell this to and who not to tell this to, right? So now that we have a reasonable goal written for ourselves, let's see how the rest of a goal setting adventure comes to fruition. Let me check the chat really quick before we get into these specific goals setting portion. Okay, it looks like we have no questions in the chat. So let's go ahead. Okay, so let's start with our first example. The 85% of clients is not experiencing a QLE. I also want to, before we move on, point out the importance here as well of setting guardrails to your goal. Notice the not experiencing QLE portion of the goal. I don't want you putting yourself accidentally into a pickle because you set a goal that's going to fly in the face of your client's best interests. So you're not always saying 100% of my clients are going to stay the same. That's not really a goal that we want to set for ourselves. We want to give, at the end of the day, we want to put our clients first. So having that QLE, caveat there makes it so you can still do what's best for your clients without sacrificing your goal. So again, just pointing out how intentional setting that goal really was, and how much time that person probably spent in that area. So now we have that goal in mind, we can start to imagine what changes we want our clients to experience in order for us to achieve that goal. So of course, if you set yourself a goal that is client facing, your goal is going to, or if your goal is something like add something, the new line of business, there's going to be different steps you need, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But for this one, this particular goal, we're looking at how our experiences with our clients are going to change. So I would sit down, if it were me, do some brainstorming as to the beginning to end client experience that they have. And really this goal, I think being able to achieve it really starts with getting a great fit for that client from the get-go, right? Not just throwing them into, oh, this is the most popular plan, so I'm going to just put all my clients in this one. Really sitting down and listening to what that client's needs are and how that plan is going to meet those needs. And I know as an agent, you already do these things. But it's just keeping in mind, getting every single item in that list, making sure that client is comfortable, having that conversation with you, and making sure that you're putting your best foot forward when you are doing those discovery calls, right? Sometimes, as we all know, one little thing can make or break what plan is going to be the right fit for your client. So getting all that information the first time in the discovery call, so you can really dig into those quotes with your best foot forward, is so important. Next, they should have no issues with their coverage, and if they do, they should have a way to easily rectify that problem. Having great customer service, having a carrier that works for the area that person lives in and has some way to rectify any issues that they might have. And then the last part is being well educated about every benefit the plan offers. This point works for both the client and the agent, right? You have to be well educated in what you're selling to your clients so that you can educate them, so that they understand all their benefits, they like them, they enjoy them, they know that this is the right fitting plan for them, and they can use every aspect of it to their advantage so that your work doesn't fall short of the best it can be because your client didn't know how to utilize this properly, right? So again, these are our three things we want to make sure. We want to make sure our discovery call is going well. We want to make sure we're picking a carrier that works for the client, and we're making sure that that client is well educated in the benefits they are going to get from their plan. Once you have all those settled down again, backwards design will strike for you again at this point. You're going to want to check to make sure you are on the right track by explaining these pain points or these changes you want to make with your client experience to another person in your agency, to a friend, to a colleague, to someone, or to yourself if you can really think outside of what you're trying to accomplish here, separate it from that and think about what those three things mean. And if you can do that and still get to the goal, if you can write your goal based on those client experiences, then you're probably on the right track. If you put your client experience changes out to someone and they're like, I really don't know what you're getting at here, it's a lot of everywhere, or I don't know how that's going to change your business, I don't know how that's going to make it better, adjust. But if the person can look at those three things and say, hey, I really think you're trying to create a more solid experience for your business, you're on the right track. Obviously, they're probably not going to get it word for word. They probably won't get your number, but if they can get your general idea, you're good. You're on the right track. So I just said a lot. I'm going to give myself a moment to check the chat again really quick before we head into our next portion. But think for a moment and put in the chat, if you could be so kind to me or to the entire chat, what other actions might boost your chances of achieving this goal that we did not include in there? I didn't want to overwhelm you with tons and tons and tons of client experience changes, but if you can think of another one, I know I can, throw it in the chat for me really quick. Okay, yeah. So someone said, They have a focus on kind of like the interactions they have with their clients and really making sure that they get to know their clients, not just on a level of what kind of insurance do you want and what kind of medications do you take, but getting to know them as a human being. That really solidifies the relationship, and I really like that point. I think that that's something that good agents just do. So kudos to you for doing that. I know I see a couple people in this webinar right now. I know I've talked to you personally. I know that's one of your goals as well. So if that's not something you focus on in your agency, I suggest taking a look into that and just not just being so hyper focused on the goal of the getting coverage for your client, but really looking at them as a human being, because that's like the best part of being an agent, right? Maybe just to me, but I like talking to people, so getting to know them really puts them on your side. So the next portion of our show, the fun part, is what do you now need to do differently in order to achieve those goals? And what do you need to get to at the end? So what are you going to now, or your agency, or what is going to happen differently now that you have some experiences you want to change with your clients? So how do these changes get implemented? So you have to make sure right off the get that you're getting all the info that you need to make an informed choice for your clients. We already kind of said that. These overlap a little bit in some ways, especially because I talk too much and I like to explain things. But again, having that structured, comfortable discovery process already, not just waltzing in there and just, typing in stuff as you go, really having a structure for yourself to make sure you get all that information is important. And then next, developing that capacity to service clients across all carriers. So this means not just sticking with one carrier you know and love. All of us, I'm sure, started with just one carrier because, it was hard enough learning from the beginning. And I get it, that carrier is really comfortable, or maybe you live in a city that really just bleeds one certain color and they really like a certain carrier in that area. But that does not mean that that carrier is the end all be all. Having options available to them is awesome, especially because, and we talked about this in some of my other future proofing webinars as well, you don't know what that client's going to throw at you, or I'm sorry, that carrier is going to throw at you, right? So if you don't know what that client's going to throw at you, it's having all your eggs in that basket really leaves you stuck with whatever that client, or that, I keep saying client, I'm sorry, whatever with that carrier is going to throw at you, right? So having another carrier on deck to say, hey, you were taking this medication and this carrier was covering it, now they decided to drop it. Well, luckily I have this other carrier who doesn't cover it as well, but at least it's still getting whatever, right? You're keeping those options open for that person. Even if they don't take the option, they like hearing that it's there. And then of course, never leave your clients in the dark, giving them those next steps, having educational tools on deck to pass out to them. Maybe you didn't give them anything at first. Now you're collecting those materials to give them to your client. Maybe you gave them some, but you didn't give them how to use the app that comes with it, whatever it is, making sure you have all those things available so that when your client needs to go to the urgent care in 3 months and they forgot everything you talked about, they have it in their app ready to go, or they have that folder that they threw in the junk drawer, whatever, to be able to get that coverage they need. And they were like, wow, my agent was right. I really did benefit from having this plan with this certain thing, whatever. And then finally, what do you need to get those goals rolling? Aside from $1 million, which if you have it, all power to you. But if you don't, then this is where you're going to mindfully choose what support systems you're going to put in so that you can get to the goals that you set and do those things that you said you're going to do. So for this particular goal, I would say that the first thing that you would need for that point all the way at the left-hand side is to get a tool that you can easily get a hold of that makes sure that you're hitting all those things. You can either talk to your account manager here and they can help you work through a script for yourself. We also have downloadable worksheets that you can fill out with your client to make sure that as long as you're following the worksheet that you are going to hit all those things that you need, not only to stay compliant if you're in the Medicare world, but to make sure asking those correct questions to get that really good fit for coverage. Coverage for one can allow you to email those things out so the client can do that on their own. Coverage for one also will outline it for you. So having something there on deck for you so that you're not just jumping in and then accidentally forgetting or whatever, beautiful. And you can get that from us. Schedule time with your servicing mentor or lean on your FMO for some back office support for that middle portion of, what obviously you're going to be able to use some of your background knowledge of the time you've spent working in this area to kind of know what carriers work for you and work for your agency. But if you are someone who happened to wind up in the situation where you're only using one carrier, calling your account manager and saying, hey, what do you think I should add here? Or what could I benefit from gaining from getting a new carrier? Or what have you seen? You have your ear to the ground. What's been up lately in the world of outside of the carrier I'm working with can really help you see the great options of doing something different. And then again, your FMO, I mean, I'm a little biased since I'm, here working at one, but we also can help you with that product knowledge, whether we sit down with you and talk to you about it, whether you go on Insurability and you grab some of those materials that you've been looking for, whether you are watching webinars for yourself to get up on the up and up knowledge, whether you're checking your emails regularly, whatever it is, we can help you get to that knowledge point so you can pass those knowledge points then on to your clients and being that knowledge base for them. Okay, so that worked for that particular goal. We're going to go through one more before I let you go today. I'm going to check the chat for questions really quick before we get into that second goal. Okay, it looks like we are all good. So I'm going to go through this next goal setting experience. And of course, this one is a little different. If you remember it from before, this one is a more intrinsic facing goal. So most of what we're going to do in here is not going to talk about interactions with our clients. It's going to be more talking about how we can balance our time between what we need to do to keep our business running, as I like to say, keeping the lights on, and what we need to do to keep our goal that we are setting for ourselves in mind too. So the other goal that we had written at the beginning of our show was I will be 100% ready to sell Medicare plans to my clients by AEP. This portion of goal changing doesn't really change all that much. You still have your percentage, your number that you're measuring. You still have your time frame that you set for yourself. And then finally you have that thing you want to accomplish. So the only difference is the change is going to orbit around you instead of around your clients. No pressure, but that is the shift here. So you'll notice in our theory of change here, the wording is a little different. Instead of focusing on what you want to change with your client experiences, you're now going to focus on what experiences do you need so that you can get your goal that you are looking for. So make yourself a roadmap or a plan. What needs to get done to reach this goal? So if you're adding, we talked about before, I had it on the screen right there. Our goal was to sell Medicare plans, be ready to sell, Medicare plans to our clients by AEP and being 100% ready to go in doing that. So there's 3 things that you'll have to accomplish by that point. There's probably a lot more overarchingly, in the nitty gritty, but overarchingly, these are the 3 that we're going to organize this into and then divide and conquer in that area. So the first thing you're going to want to do is understand how this market differs from the market you're currently in. If you're in the under 65 market, it probably won't be as different as if you're in the group setting. but either way, there's going to be some differences, right? And knowing what those differences really are will keep you safe, right? Because if you've worked in Medicare already, you already know there's a ton of compliance that you need to have under your belt. Not to mention some of the other things we're going to talk about in a minute, but that is probably one of the most important things, is knowing that you're staying compliant and safe within the market and making sure this is a good decision for you. And then choose your carriers that you want to work with and get appointed with those carriers. You've been appointed probably to some extent with your carriers, with some carriers before. So this is not a completely new process for you, but maybe the onboarding might be different. Or for instance, with Priority Health, they require you to attend an in-person session, or be getting all that together for yourself. And then of course, you want to advertise finally to the world that, yes, I'm adding a new line of business. I can help you past 65. Now, you want to make sure that your business, not just you, but your business is ready to do this, right? Your discovery process, how is that going to change from your group to your Medicare sales? You got to put that on your business card now, man. Your website's got to change. You got to have some ways to gather leads. You have to put yourself out there. There's a lot of stuff you're going to have to do. Adding a new book of business, while it's so exciting and such a great opportunity, it is a lot of work. It takes a lot of planning, man. So the next part is, how do I refine my schedule to provide those experiences for myself? If you've done Medicare before, you know what I'm going to say. It's not, you don't just research the market and start doing it. You have to get certified. And if you, as you know, that those certifications aren't available 24/7, there's only a certain time frame you have to get those certifications, and that's okay, right? So you can tweak between those two experiences that you're going to need, right? You can educate yourself on the market, and then get your certifications and appointments, and then continue to educate yourself on the market. And then, oh, you found out your carriers released their products, get in those, really dig in, learn those products, but don't forget about, oh, well, maybe I should learn a little bit. Even though I don't plan on selling D-SNPs right yet, just start to know at least what they are, so I can have an intelligent conversation about them if the client brings them up. Or, really understand a C-SNP, even though I'm working with, if we're working with Blue, for instance, and they don't offer SNPs, right? So even being able to have that intelligent conversation, despite not planning on selling them quite yet, is a good idea, which might work for you. Maybe that's that's for you to decide within your goal process. Do I want to be that broad when I start out? Do I have the bandwidth to learn about Medicare Advantage and SNPs? And maybe you want to just stick with Med Advantage for a year and then refine that goal later and decide, you know what, I did a great job with this. I want to add SNPs or add subs or whatever. Or maybe you just want to focus on the one, because you also, in the meantime, are keeping those plates spinning of keeping your business afloat, right? So having that crisscross time and making sure you're scheduling yourself appropriately and sticking to that schedule is what's going to keep this goal going, right? Because like I said, we only have so much time, and especially this goal, hard set of AEP, right? If you're not AEP ready, I don't know what you're gonna have to put it off till next year. So then the last portion is making sure your materials and client interactions can properly tackle Medicare, right? So again, there are some things in the discovery process that transcend books of business, right? There's questions you're always going to want to ask. There's some practices and procedures you will always want to put in place, but there are some other procedures and other things that are exclusive to Medicare. And you're going to want to set yourself up for success and make sure you're gaining those points as well, right? So something's going to have to be different in that process. And then again, we talked about marketing materials, making sure those are aligned, ready to go. So then we get those supports that we need, those items that we need. So you probably know what I'm going to say already. If you work in the Medicare space with us, you know that to get yourself ready, we have tons of marketing materials and learning materials for you. You're sitting in one right now. Not specific to Medicare, of course, but we have tons of learning devices available, whether that be webinars, whether that be giving a ring to your account manager, talking to them, whether that be sitting down in insurability and digging through on your own time, whether that be calling me with a question. There's tons of ways that you're FMO and we can support you in getting yourself targeted to the right market, or how to add that market, I should say, to your book. And then completing carrier onboarding and getting appointed. Once those things come out from the carrier, then you would go ahead and get those things done. You'd find those websites, get those logins, get that contact with that carrier, getting that onboarding taken care of. And then if you have any issues with that, keep in mind we can help you there too as well. We have a contract specialist here who can help work through with you if you're having trouble getting that process started or having trouble getting follow through from the carrier. We can help you with that as well. And then last but not least, like I kind of alluded to and mentioned before, is making sure that all of your marketing materials are updated and making sure your discovery process is updated. So again, we have enrollment tools, we have discovery worksheets, we have webinars on making sales, we have webinars on quarter follow-on follow-ups, we have webinars on marketing your business, getting ads out there, changing, we can help you with your website, we can help you with how to update business cards, all of that stuff, right? All that stuff's going to be updated now. Awesome, because you want to get your word out there that, hey, I can help you. I can help you in a way that I couldn't before. So that's what the final thing that you want to do before that October date rolls around. So this was the entirety of what I kind of talked you through in that internal goal. Very similar to the external one, just a little different in regards to not really including clients until that very end portion of your journey. But before I let you go today, I just want to remind you of the ways that you can get a hold of all of us. Thank you so much for spending time with me. And I hope this year is a year of growth for you and your business. And if you need help, let me know. Thank you so much for spending time with me here today, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.